Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Nieri, and this is the latest edition of Shoesmith's Charity Podcast, where we take the time to discuss matters of interest with people in the charities world. Today, I'm pleased to announce that I'm joined by Lynn Watmore, founder trustee of the Showman's Children's Charity. Hello, Lynn. Welcome.
Hello, Robert. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, and the reason for having you is really to celebrate your charity, because I think amongst the doom and gloom of the last 12 months or so, it's good to have some good news stories for a change. Now, Lynn, your charity, the Showman's Children's Charity, is about to celebrate its 10th anniversary. So what I want to do is to introduce our listeners to your organisation and begin by asking, how did you decide to set up the charity? Or why did
Thank
you
you,
decide to
Robert.
set it up?
Thank you. We are very excited to be reaching our 10th anniversary. The charity actually arose from a private appeal fund that we set up to send a young boy to America for treatment. He had cerebral palsy. And on HMRC advice, we decided that should there be an excess of funds beyond what was required to send him, that we would specify that that was going to go to set up a charity for children. The HMRC told us that we needed to specify the amount and specify what would happen with excess. So we decided to set up a registered charity for Showman's Children, basically because we felt there was a need in the community. Showmen are a very family orientated community, very generous community, very quick to help other people, very quick to do things for charity, to raise money for charity, both national ones and smaller local hospices and hospitals. But there was nothing in place for showmen themselves. So we found ourselves in a position where we were trying to raise quite a lot of money in a short space of time. And we felt that there really ought to be something that was targeted back at the community, giving something back. So that was where the idea originated.
Thank you. For the benefit of our listeners, can you explain who the Showmen are and what their community is?
Indeed, showmen are the people who organise fun fairs and travel rides and equipment. They're a very historic community. There are many fairs in this country that go back well over 800 years, charter fairs, and they often face discrimination, unfortunately, because of the nature of their business. A lot of ignorance, really, about who showmen are. And in essence, they are business people. And as I said earlier, very family orientated. So a deserving community, I feel.
Thank you. So around about 10 years ago, and I think the actual date is the 19th of May, so hopefully around the time this podcast will be broadcast, you decided to set up a charity. It's an unincorporated charity established by trustee. What are the key things that you've learned in the first 10 years of the charity's operation?
I think we've been quite fortunate in many ways, because the things that we've really learned, I think, go back to how the charity was set up. We were very keen that we wanted to get charity commission registration, because we felt that was a marker that you are using, in effect, public funds in the right way. So we were keen that we should be thorough in our processes. So the first thing we did, we looked at the information that was available on the Charity Commission website. There is a great deal of really useful information there, particularly things like the Essential Trustee document. We wanted to understand what our responsibilities were. None of us had any experience in running a charity before. So we wanted to make sure we knew our obligations, we knew what we were supposed to do in terms of the law. So that was our first port of call. The second port of call was to get good professional advice and to ensure that we set up our objects and our governing document properly and thoroughly, and that we understood those completely. And also that we set up our processes and procedures before we started to have meetings. So those would be things like, how are we going to run our meetings? How many were we going to have? And critically, I think, how were we going to make decisions? We wanted to make sure that our decisions were robust. So we have quite a thorough decision-making process. So we looked at what kind of due diligence were we going to do? What would we do in case of disagreement? How were we going to ensure consistency over time and also across decisions so that we could demonstrate thoroughness, fairness, that we were fulfilling our objects properly, we were fulfilling the law properly, um, and that we could be transparent in those processes. So we spent quite a lot of time thinking about how were we going to do things and how everything should run in terms of our meetings and our decision making, um, so that we could meet Charity Commission expectations and expectations of the community. Um, and I think the other thing is about keeping up to date. We like to keep up to date with what is going on with the Charity Commission, so the kind of decisions, the kind of information that they're putting out, we keep up to date with that. And also reviewing our processes periodically. So we typically will go back and have a look through the trust deed, make sure we are still familiar with that, make sure it is still appropriate, look at our minutes and are we consistent? Do we look back at anything and think, maybe we didn't do that thoroughly? I think it would be very easy to sometimes, when you get a request, to look at a particular case and think, well, that's very clear cut. But we've tried to guard against that by making sure that we always go through the same process, irrespective of whether a case looks obvious or maybe not so. And that will encompass things like how much money is requested, what kind of time frame is necessary. So is it one-off treatment or a one-off piece of equipment? Or is it something that's going to be a regular occurrence, perhaps like physiotherapy? And how long is that going to be for? We can't give a blank check, so we will put time limits on it and then we will have a review. So we may agree to finance physiotherapy, for example, over 6 months or a year, and then we will review the situation, because you don't always know what a child's full needs are right at the very beginning. A shorter course of physiotherapy might work, alternatively it might not.
Understood. And have there been any difficult cases where you felt that you couldn't really assist in the circumstances because you have a limited pot and you need to focus your resources?
I think there are always cases that are going to fall just outside or maybe further outside your objects. And the objects for us have been important in adhering to those, because that's part of fulfilling the job that you set out to do, but also demonstrating fairness. If you start to, as long I say, as I should say, as those objects are still relevant, if you start moving away from those, then you can get into a grey area, and you may end up not actually being able to fulfill your primary purpose.
It's a good point. Okay.
So we've tended to adhere to those. We do look at sometimes, do we need to change a little bit, but nothing really has changed. So as long as we keep reviewing, we
Yeah.
feel that we're doing the right thing.
Thank you. Final question for you. Bearing in mind the, I say, unprecedented circumstances we've had in the last year or so, how have your trustees coped with the last 12 months, and what does the future hold for the Showman's Children's Charity?
I think that we have been fortunate because we came into the last 12 months with a healthy situation. So we were able to continue financing those children who were already receiving treatment or services, whatever it was. We were able to continue with that without worrying too much about it. Our worry has actually been the availability of services for children. Some things have been able to move online and the children have been able to continue, but other things haven't been able to, such as physiotherapy. And even with other services, with very small children, an online service may not be relevant to them, may not be suitable for them. So that's been our major concern, delays in children being able to have the treatment. That seems to be easing now. There are
Good.
more face-to-face services taking place. So we're pleased to be getting back to that situation and being able to follow up with the children that are already on our books, if you like, that we are already supporting. And hopefully they will be able to start up again. And I think when we started the charity 10 years ago, one of our key aims was that it should be there long after we weren't. So that's about making sure that we always have that financial stability and that we are continuing to provide the kind of services that the charity is there to provide or to finance them, to do what we set out to do what it says on the tin, basically.
Thank you very much, Lynn. I think we can leave it on that high note. All it remains for me to do is to thank you for your time and to wish you a very happy 10th birthday, and I hope you have many more birthdays to come, both yourself and the charity.
Thank you very much indeed, Robert. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Thank you.